I decided to do a reading vlog about my experience reading House of Sky and Breath, which, as you guys know, it's like a big, exciting book to come out. But so far, I'm really liking it. One thing that I can say though is I, for some reason, can't remember a freaking thing about House of Earth and Blood. Now, that book in general confused the heck out of me. Like, I felt like I couldn't fully grasp that book, and I don't know why. I've talked about it in past videos, how there's just some sort of disconnection there with me where I just felt confused through a lot of the book. And even watching the overviews, I still felt kind of confused and like disconnected. I really loved the book. It was like a 4-star read for me, but there was elements of that book that just couldn't grasp. So this one I'm kind of worried about because I'm like, I hope there's not like a lot of stuff from Crescent City that I'm gonna have to like try to remember for this one. But so far, I'm really liking it. Now, I've heard that this book is really, really good. I've seen a couple like spoiler-free reviews saying that like Sarah J. Maas is like a genius, like this was so good. So I'm like really, really excited. And I kind of started reading it yesterday. And one thing that I have to say, you guys, this is like one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to books and like series. I hate it when authors do this. It annoys the crap out of me. And Sarah J. Maas did it in this. She changed Hunt's appearance. Hair makes the character. Like, don't you guys agree? Like, when you picture the male love interest, if they have long black hair, that is them as a character. They have long black hair. Like, you can't cut their hair short because that's not them anymore. But so far, so I'm gonna say the prologue in this was like really confusing. Like, I was watching a TikTok the other day and I started cracking up and I showed my husband Travis it.
I can't wait to read this. It's supposed to be a sci-fi classic. Garloon awoke from settering with a start. Had he forgotten to krill? Surely not, he thought, but as he hung from the straps of Prom Clegg, he began to doubt. The vibrations from his drit unnerved him. No, I won't tell you what that is. He motioned to his robotic Porielli with his mind glove, breaking its telemore cleanly and smoothly, like only a seeker can. Of course, that resulted in his flom, plate, and dinks being open to finders. It was a risk he'd have to take. Well, it doesn't make sense yet, but I'm sure it will soon. Greegly, deegly, beegly, sheegly, deegly, reegly, reeg.
It was literally me reading the prologue of this novel. Like, I was like, huh? Like, who is this? What is this? What is this word? I don't know. But after the prologue, they finally go back to like regular like Hunt Bryce content. So you're like, okay, now I'm back into this world that I know. But for the prologue, I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know what this is and what is going on. And I hate that when an author drops you into like a prologue that you have no clue about. And you're just like, oh, do I really feel like reading this right now? So you kind of have to like get in that like mindset of like really concentrating. But so far I'm liking it. So far I feel like Sarah J. Maas is doing a pretty good job at kind of throwing in little reminders here and there. So that's good. So I'm reading a little bit more and I think it's really interesting because when I was actually going into reading this book, I was wondering how Sarah J. Maas was going to deal with like the sexual tension, because in the whole first book, we didn't really get any like steamy scenes. But then at the very, very end of the book, you know, everything was over. Hunt and Bryce were kind of like together, but like they hadn't really done anything yet, you know, but they were in a place where like they liked each other. Like it was clear like where they were at the end of that last book. And so I was like, how is she going to transition into their relationship in the next book? Like, are they just going to be like already hooking up and like having sex all the time? Like, I don't understand how she's going to do that, because a good writer obviously knows that you need a little bit of slow burn, a little bit of tension there to like really make those first like steamy scenes really good and satisfying. And so I was like, how is she going to do that? So what she decided to do, obviously, as you guys know, if you've read this is a spoilery video, is she decided to put a time limit. Like Bryce was like, I'm not ready to like do all that yet. Like, I want to get to know you outside of like solving murders. Like, I feel like we were just so wrapped up in all of this stuff that we didn't really get to know each other like really well outside of all that. And she put a time limit on it. So 4 months to winter solstice. So they can hook up on winter solstice. Like, she made a very specific day. And I'm kind of like, it feels slightly forced to me, like a little unrealistic. Like, I kind of feel like Sarah J. Maas had to figure out a way to like cause a little bit of tension there. Like, she couldn't just jump into the like steamy scenes. It wouldn't have been good that way. So I feel like it's kind of forced. Like, I feel like it's unbelievable. Like, I'm kind of like, sure, like that would really happen, especially because they like obviously like each other. In this whole first part of the book, they're turned on by each other, but they like can't hook up until winter solstice, like because of a rule that Bryce decided to come up with. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that it's not okay that they get to know each other. Like, they totally can do that. That's fine. Like, in this case, it feels slightly unrealistic. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm really liking where this is going with the whole marriage thing and how she's like betrothed to her cousin, which is kind of weird. Like, I don't really get that, but she's like supposed to marry this guy, this Fae guy. And I really like that. I think I'm really gonna like this trope if she kind of like uses this throughout the whole story, because I could see a lot of like jealousy, like, you know, forming there in Hunt, which I really like that type of trope, like that protector, like she is like mine, not yours, like get away from my girl. Like, I love that. I know not everybody does, but because she's betrothed to this like random elf prince guy, or not elf, Fae prince guy, like I feel like it's really gonna be really satisfying. But then I was thinking, okay, in Sarah J. Maas fashion, what if, just hear me out for a second, what if Hunt isn't the one? What if we're like rooting for Hunt because we're like, oh, Hunt, but like, what if it's not Hunt? What if it's like this new Fae prince? Like, what if that is going to be the new love interest? Kind of like she did with Reese. Like, what if that's the thing? I don't know. Okay, you guys, so I'm on page 154. I actually haven't gotten a ton of time to read this book. I kind of feel like I'm working through it really, really slowly. But one thing that I feel like I should start doing, and I think I am going to start doing this whenever I start like a new really, really big series, especially a series that isn't completed yet and I have to wait for like next books to come out, is make a Pinterest board for the characters. Because here's the thing, I read, you know, obviously Crescent City right when it came out, and there's some characters that like I remember who they are, but I don't remember how I pictured them. And it's frustrating to me because I want to remember how I pictured them, but I can't. And I feel like if I would have made like a Pinterest board of some people for like specific characters, and I could just look at my Pinterest board and be like, okay, that's how I pictured this character, it would be so much easier. I can't remember Declan and what's the other guy's name? Rune's friends, Declan and I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I can't remember how I pictured them. I know I pictured one of them with red hair, but now I can't remember which one I pictured with red hair. I think it was Declan. But if I would have had a Pinterest board, it would have made things so much easier. Also, the fact that Bryce's star always lights up when Cormac's around, like, does that not just scream mate of some sort? Are they like destined to be together? Like I said, I feel like Bryce and Cormac are like actually gonna end up together in the end of this whole entire thing. Crescent City was slow. Like, it really truly was. This one I feel like isn't maybe quite as slow because the world building isn't as bad because you're not learning everything about the world, but I still feel like this one's a little on the slow side, and I'm just kind of like, come on, let's get to the point. I'm gonna keep going. I wanna make more progress on this. I feel like I'm reading this so slow. Like, do you ever feel like sometimes you get in these reading moods where you're just like reading really slowly and it's like hard for you to like kind of push through certain parts? Like, that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. Like, I'm just like spending too much time like overthinking things. Like, I just kind of need to like push through and kind of like feel like more connected to the story at this point. Like, I feel like I'm kind of at a lull moment. So I'm at the part where like Bryce and Hunt are trying to decide if they want to help, you know, Cormac and, you know, Therion and everyone find Sophie and her brother. And she's trying to decide like if that's a good idea because they find out Cormac is like part of the rebels and everything. And in my mind, I'm like, like, it's kind of annoying to me because obviously Hunt was a slave forever because of the stuff that he went through and all that kind of thing, because of all of the stuff that Bryce is almost like forcing him into again. And obviously Hunt has been literally enslaved forever and he's finally free and he just wants to live like a free and normal life. But like Bryce is just kind of like not even caring, like, whatsoever. She's not even really thinking about Hunt and the fact that he just wants to live a normal life finally after being a slave forever. And she's just like, no, I want to find Sophie because I want to know why she's connected to Danica. Like, that's all she cares about. She doesn't care about Hunt at all. And then I'm like, no offense. Like, I understand Danica was like her best friend, but like, she's no longer alive. And in my head, I'm just kind of like, it's time to like move on and like protect the people that are in your life now. And I feel like she's not doing a very good job at protecting Hunt and like the things that he's been through. And it's just kind of frustrating to me because like the only reason she wants to find Sophie and Emil is because she wants to just find out more about Danica. Then also the whole like sexual tension thing is not there. Like, I almost feel like Hunt and Bryce have taken like 10,000 steps back, which is weird because, you know, she's supposed to be waiting until winter solstice or whatever, or summer solstice, I can't remember, to like finally hook up with each other. But I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, now they're getting into a whole bunch of other drama when she wanted to get to know him outside of the, you know, what happened in the last book. But now they're just jumping into a whole nother slew of drama, and it's like, shit or get off the pot. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, I feel like they're not even like, they don't even like hug or kiss or hold hands, nothing. They don't do anything. Like, they're not even like really a couple. So it's just kind of weird. Like, I feel like there's no sexual tension there. Like, I'm not feeling it. Like, sometimes they'll get like turned on by each other's look or something, but like they never show each other affection. You know what I mean? And so I'm just kind of like, what is this relationship? It's not making any sense to me. Okay, so literally 2 seconds later after my last update, it says, well, since we're dabbling in some seriously dangerous shit, now's probably as good a time as any to admit I don't want to wait until winter solstice. So, joke's on me. All right, you guys, so I am about on page 244. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling myself like being a little bit annoyed with Bryce in this book. And I don't know if I'm like the only one that feels this way. I don't know if Sarah J. Maas was kind of doing that on purpose. I feel like maybe she is, but I don't know. Because like, I kind of feel like Bryce is just completely disregarding any reason why Hunt might not want to do this. And she's making Bryce extremely selfish in her endeavors. And I feel like Bryce is kind of like, well, we need to find Emil because Emil's just a kid. And she's trying to like justify her reasonings for going out to find Sophie and Emil, when in reality, the only reason she really wants to is to like figure out the ties that they had with Danica, because she wants to know about Danica more or whatever. And it's like a really stupid and selfish reason. And Hunt is like, listen, I have been doing this for like 200 years. I was enslaved. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. And you can tell Hunt's like hesitancy on this. Like, I just want to live a normal life. And it's like, Bryce doesn't even care. And it's annoying me. Like, there's this one scene, Hunt is like, so you're really going to help Cormac then? And she said, it's not about wanting to help him. It's more about wanting to help Emil. And then she's like, and she admitted, learning about Danica. And then Hunt goes, it doesn't matter about Danica, I mean. She's forgetting about the fact that Hunt is not going to let anything bad happen to her. So if she does anything for the rebels, like, he will follow through with it as well because he doesn't want to lose her. So she's just not even caring. But I just started part 2, and I'm at the part where Therian goes because he's been summoned by the River Queen, and she's pissed off because he asked her daughter out on a date. Now, he's like married to her daughter or whatever, or betrothed to her daughter, and he's never really been that fond of the River Queen's daughter. I can't remember her name, but he's never really been that fond of her, but she's always had like a major thing for him. And I kind of feel like I could really enjoy seeing Therian kind of grow feelings towards the River Queen's daughter, and kind of realizing that the River Queen is like kind of holding her prisoner, and she kind of wants to like keep her under the water. She doesn't want her to see the world. And I think it would be really cool to see Therian kind of realize that and want to help her, and kind of growing feelings for her and seeing that relationship kind of progress. And I think it would be really cool because the River Queen's daughter, I can't remember what her name is, gosh dang it. It'd be really cool to see the River Queen's daughter kind of come to the realization that she wants out from under the River Queen, and seeing Therian want to help her and stuff could be really cute. All right, you guys, so I'm on page 384, and I am at a part where Rune, he is talking to that, what is it, Daybright? The fire lady, you know how they like communicate. he's talking to her, and I'm trying to figure out who she is. Like, she is going to be somebody specific, and I'm trying to figure out, like, who she is. Now, I'm not somebody that, like, is really good at predicting things in books. Like, I see these people that, like, are insanely good at predicting, like, all these things and, like, coming up with theories and everything, and I'm like, how do you guys do that? I don't know. But I'm wondering if this fire lady is Hypaxia, the girl that Rune is engaged to. And because he said he never really felt like that connected to her, like he's just doing it, you know, for whatever reason. But like, what if it's her and he starts to grow really close to her, because you can kind of see them like growing this bond or whatever. And I'm like, that would be kind of cool to see him like grow a bond with Hypaxia, and like, you know, he has to be with her and is destined to be with her or whatever. But like, what if they actually are like really good for each other? And she's also saying a lot of things like, I feel like are hinting towards the fact that she could be Hypaxia. I mean, honestly, this fire lady could be anybody, and I feel like it would be like a really good twist. But like, the things that she's saying makes me believe it might be Hypaxia. Like, she says she doesn't have friends or family. And Rune says, no family, huh? A true lone wolf. My father's a piece of shit, so a lot of times I wish I were like you. And she says, I have a family, a very influential one. She propped her head on her burning fist. They're pieces of shit too. Which her sister is the hind. So obviously, you know, she's talking about her crappy sibling. Could it be Hypaxia? I don't know. That's just a random theory that I had. But like I said, like, it could literally be anybody. Like, I keep like going through all the people that we've been like introduced to, and yeah, that's the only person that I'm like, You're gonna sit here and tell me that Hunt and Bryce haven't found 1 second of free time to do it? Not a single second. They couldn't just kick Ethan out for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? I feel like Sarah J. Maas is definitely trying for the, you know, slow burn thing, or like the anticipation, but it's just not working for me, because I'm like, this isn't believable, you know? I mean, they're busy, but they're not that busy. It's the part where Hypaxia comes to talk to Rune because she wants an escort to the mating party or whatever it is. And honestly, like, I still think Hypaxia is the flame lady in, you know, their mind little bridge thing, and they just haven't realized it yet, but I kind of have a feeling, and I kind of think maybe Hypaxia knows, but I'm not 100% sure. But like, I would love it if that was the case, and then like him and Hypaxia are like the next like cute couple of the series or whatever. But it got me thinking, I do not like Bryce and Hunt's like couple arc or like romance arc in this book series. Like, I kind of feel like Sarah J. Maas like really she kind of wanted it to be slow burn in a way, but she like missed the mark slightly. Like, I kind of feel like it was going up like on a hill, and we were all kind of waiting for like this big moment or whatever, and we kind of got it with the whole mate thing or whatever. But like, I kind of feel like it started to go down again. And then like, that's when they like hooked up for the first time, and they like, you know, did all that. But like, I never really felt like this really good, satisfying moment with Hunt and Bryce. And I just kind of feel very disconnected from them. Like, I feel like Bryce is just kind of like flippity about things all the time. And like, Hunt is like kind of like really into her, and he's like hardcore wanting to protect her and all that kind of thing. But Bryce is just kind of like la-di-da. Like, I kind of feel like Bryce is like turned on by him, and she's like thinks he's super hot, and he like turns her on and stuff in that regard. But like, she's not, I just don't get like the vibes that she's like super into Hunt and they like really care about each other. Like, it's not one of those really satisfying relationships to me, and I don't know why. I feel like Sarah J. Maas sort of missed the mark with them in a way. Like, you know how Rhys and Feyre kind of started to get a little bit irritating in A Court of Silver Flames? Like, you were just kind of like, it's not that you didn't like them, you were just kind of bored of them. Like, you kind of feel like they had like their big couple arc, and then now they're just kind of in like the like after stages of that. I kind of feel like Hunt and Bryce are like in the after stages, but they never really had like their big moment. Whereas like other couples have like that big moment where you're like, yes. I just never felt that moment with Hunt and Bryce. Does anybody else feel that way? Like now I feel like I'm like trying to root for other characters at this point. Like I'm trying to root for Rune and Hypaxia, or Therion and the River Queen's daughter. Like I want like another couple to like kind of start something, because I just feel like Hunt and Bryce were like really anticlimactic for me. We're at the part where Bryce goes into the ball or whatever, and she introduces Hunt as her mate. And like this whole entire book, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like how is she gonna get out of this like engagement to Cormac? Like how's this gonna play out? You know, I thought it was gonna be like this big thing. But apparently all she had to do was just walk into this ball and introduce Hunt as her mate before her dad introduced Cormac as like her future husband, and that's how you can get out of it. Like it's that easy that she just walks into this ball and is like, this is my mate Hunt. And now it's like I don't understand like how that was just so easy. And like why were they so stressed about it if like that was all they had to do? Okay, so after reading a little bit farther, I think I finally kind of get it. So the reason why they were worried about it before was because they didn't know Hunt was her actual real mate. They just like said they were mates, but then later they realized that they actually are real mates. And that's the only way that they were able to get out of this engagement. Like they couldn't just be like, this is my mate, even though he wasn't her mate. Like that wouldn't get them out of the engagement, and they didn't know that before. So I get it now. But we're gonna find out who the flame lady is soon, because they're gonna meet at the fountain. And my bets are on Hypaxia. If it's not Hypaxia, then I bet it's Celestina. But I feel like it's Hypaxia, like based on like their conversations, like I kind of think it's her. But it could be Celestina, because I feel like Celestina isn't really into the person that she like was assigned to mate with or whatever. And I kind of feel like some of the conversations might be pointing to her, but like also it doesn't really match perfectly at the same time. So I'm still wondering though too, like what if it's the Hind? What if she's the fire lady? Like that would be crazy, wouldn't it? Like imagine if he fell in love with the Hind without realizing it. And then he's engaged obviously to Hypaxia, which is her sister. I mean, if you think about it, like, why wouldn't the Hind like tell on them? Like she's had a lot of opportunity to tell the Asteri about them and like the things that they have done. Like she does know some weird things about them, but she's never said anything to them. So why hasn't she like ratted them out? Is it because she's kind of on their side secretly? Like, what if it's the Hind? I just actually put that together. I mean, I kind of had that thought before, but like I keep forgetting about her, but like, could be. It's gonna happen soon. Rune suppressed his smile at the thought of their fruitless hunt and focused on his partner. Hypaxia seemed to be scanning the crowd. I wonder why. I wonder why she's scanning the crowd. Okay, so clearly it wasn't Hypaxia or Celestina. I wonder why. Never saw that coming. But I do think it might be the Hind. After what happened at the fountain, could be the Hind. I don't know. But Hypaxia and Celestina, what a cute little couple. Like, honestly, I love that for them. They're both like the sweetest, kindest characters, and I feel like they just work together. Like, I'm living for that. I love it. I mean, even though I wanted Rune and Hypaxia to like form some sort of like, you know, romance, I'm kind of living for the Celestina Hypaxia romance now. Like, cute. Danica is Baxian's mate. What? Okay. So I'm at the part where they're planning on going into the archives to see what's in that room, and they're kind of planning that whole thing. And I feel like this book is like finally getting really, really good. Like I kind of feel like this book was kind of struggling with pacing issues similar to the first Crescent City book. But like the ends are always really good. Like I feel like sometimes Sarah J Maas, if she could just throw in some more like really actiony scenes throughout the book that like keep you on your toes, her books would be just a little bit less like, the pacing would just be less of a problem for me. You know what I mean? You guys, I'm not gonna lie, this Rune Day little side plot is just like everything that I wanted. It feels like the type of romance that I wanted between Hunt and Bryce that I just didn't get, you know? And when they hooked up in their little fantasy brain world, I was just like, yes. Like, it was, for some reason, just so cute and satisfying, and just like everything that I wanted with Hunt and Bryce that I didn't get. And like, I'm all about Rune and Day, which is the Hind. Like, I know it's the Hind. If it's not the Hind, then I'm the worst predictor of all time. Like, literally. Like, I've had a couple theories in my head, but I like highly doubt that they are right. But I'm pretty sure it's the Hind at this point. And I think it's her because I feel like I'm noticing like these really obvious like red herrings where they're like, you know, the Hind is gonna go in and question her, like in the dungeons and stuff. Like, she's throwing in those red herrings for us to forget about the Hind, that it might be the Hind or something. So I definitely think it's probably her. But yeah, I'll be really surprised if it's not her, but I'm loving it. Like, I wish this Rune Day thing was like more of a center of the plot. Like, I would love if the next book really centered around him and her. I just love it. Like, that's probably one of my favorite POVs in this book, is just that whole plot line. Also, I'm just gonna say this right now. I mean, I know Sarah J. Maas doesn't like to kill off characters like permanently, but I think Therian is not gonna make it out of this alive. I think he made that deal and everything, and he doesn't really have a lot to live for now at this point. And I feel like Therian is gonna somehow either sacrifice himself or he's gonna die in some sort of way. So that's my prediction. I mean, I love Therian, but yeah, I don't know. As he beheld the female who leapt to her feet, now a wall between him and the harpy, the Hind. Yes, yes, yes! I'm so excited to see where this goes. So excited. Rune whispered, Day? Lydia Servos looked over a shoulder, and she said with quiet calm in her voice he knew like his own heartbeat, a voice he had never once heard her use as the Hind. Night. Oh my god, it's just so great. I love it. Do you love this, Ichi? Is it just the best? Huh? Do you love it? He was holding his mate's hand for the last time. Excuse me? Are we doing this? No, we're not gonna do this. This is not okay. You guys, I literally love Rune. I feel like Rune is my favorite character in the series, and I don't know why. He's just the best. Like, he wasn't my favorite character in the last book, but in this book, I just love him. Like, he's my book boyfriend of the Crescent City series. And it's funny because, like, don't get me wrong, I like Rhys. Like, I love the main love interests a lot, like Hunt and Rhys. But I always end up really, really liking one of the side characters more than, like, the main love interest in Sarah J. Maas's books. I don't know why. So this part where it says, he had no idea where that landed him, why he wanted and needed that steel-clad wall between him and Lydia, even as his blood howled to murder Pollux, how he could abhor her and need her and be drawn to her all in the same breath. Because they're mates, duh. Honestly, though, I'm a little bit annoyed with him right now because he's blocking her out of, like, his mind, because you know how they, like, speak to each other in their mind. He's like putting up a wall and she's like banging on the wall like, Rune, Rune, and he like isn't opening up that wall. And it's like, why are you doing that right now? Like, this is the worst possible time to be mad at Lydia. You know what I mean? Like, open up that wall and at least just see what she has to say. Maybe she has a plan. Maybe she's trying to figure out how to get out of this. And you're just going to lock her out. Like, poor timing, Rune. Like, let's not get emotional here. What? That ending. I can't comprehend. I cannot comprehend. The thing is like, I knew that the Night Court was going to make an appearance in this book. Like, it was spoiled, but I forgot. Like, I completely forgot about that spoiler. Like, I had heard it, but then like just forgot about it. And so when the Night Court appeared at the end, I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that. But it was like, shocking. Like, when I thought she was actually in hell, I was like, who is this guy? Like, is this gonna be some new love interest or something, you know? Like, I was like, just thinking it was like some demon guy or something. And I was like already creating this character in my head of like who this is gonna be. And then all of a sudden it's like Rhysand or freaking, I don't even know. I'm so, What the heck? Like, how is this even gonna like play out in the next book? Like, is the Night Court gonna be like in the next book? What is going on? I am so confused. I haven't read the epilogue yet, so I mean, we'll see. But like, I am shocked. That, amazing, amazing. I'm like trying to read this epilogue right now and I like can't even concentrate. I'm like, I've read the same sentence like 17 times because I'm like still blown away by that ending. Like, I can't focus. Like, I don't care about Ethan Holstrom. I want to read more about the Night Court. So I just ran out to the living room to gush over this book to Travis. And he's like laughing at me because he knows how much I talk about like A Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, I'm such a nerd. And so I'm like explaining to him like the ending and stuff. And I'm like, guess who it was? And I'm like, Rhysand. And he's like, oh, so she connected the books. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. So now I'm gonna go and reread that whole Night Court part to try to figure out who it was that like saved her. Was that Rhysand that saved her? Or was that like Azriel? I don't know. I'm curious. But like, are they gonna be like in the next book? Like, they have to be. Oh my God, so wonderful. Okay, so apparently I need to read Throne of Glass because I think that there's like connections to Throne of Glass in this book, but I haven't read Throne of Glass, so I wouldn't know. So I need to get on that, apparently. And can I just say, you guys, like, I always tell you guys, I don't cry in books or whatever. When I started to realize that this was like the Night Court and it was like Rhysand and everybody, like, I literally almost started crying. Like, it was one of those moments where I was like, this can't be happening right now. Like, I was so excited to see these characters and it was such a surprise that like I literally was like, are you gonna cry right now? Like, who are you? I can't even believe it. And the fact that Rune looks like Rhys, like, I love that too, because I love Rune. And like, can we, oh my God, there's just so much to unpack here. I am the perfect proof that a center part does not look good on everybody. It's literally night and day. Like, you cannot argue with me that that center part looked better than this. All right, you guys, so now for my overall review of House of Sky and Breath. So this book was such a unique reading experience for me, and like, I feel like it's really rare to be utterly shocked by a book. Like, I've had a few books where like my reading experience is so memorable, and I feel like this book is going to be one of those experiences for me where like, it's like such a rare experience. I know I had that experience in Court of Mist and Fury. I had that experience in Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I also had that experience in Every Last Word by Tamara Ireland Stone. It's like this extremely memorable reading experience that you don't get very often, but it's like this feeling of like pries itself into certain areas of your emotions that you're just not quite prepared for, and then it does it and you're like, oh my gosh, like, it just pulls so many emotions out of you so quickly that you're like, it just is a memorable thing, and it just doesn't happen very often. And this book is one of those books where it's going to be a memorable reading experience for me. Now, it's so funny, like I said in the vlog, I knew the spoiler. Like, I knew the Night Court was going to make an appearance in this book. I remember seeing it on like a TikTok or something. It got spoiled for me, and I was so mad that it was spoiled for me. And I think my mind forgot about it on purpose. I think my mind was like, no, you did not just see that, like, erase it out of your brain. Because the entire time I read this book, I forgot that the Night Court was gonna make an appearance. And then at the very, very end, I was like reading it and I started to realize who it was, and I was like, oh my God. And it was like the most amazing experience for me because I had forgotten it, and then it all started flooding back and I started getting so excited, and it was just like such an amazing moment for me. Now, I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about the crossover. For me, like, I'm all for it. Like, I love the Inner Circle so deeply. They're like my comfort characters, that when these characters made an appearance, I literally almost started crying because it was like such a rush of emotions. Like, I was so happy to see them. It was like seeing old friends or something. It was just very, very weird. But it made me just question so many things about the book, like where this book is going to go, how they're going to incorporate, you know, the Inner Circle into this. Like, are they going to be a huge part of the next book, or are they going to be maybe in the next like the first few chapters, trying to help her get to hell. Like, how are they going to play into this? I personally think that they're going to play a big role. Like, I think, you know, she's going to discover a lot about the universe and all the different planets and, you know, how everything is connected through the Night Court. And the Night Court is going to be like a major, like, tool for her. And plus, obviously, the Dusk Court, we've all questioned for years and years and years, like, where's the Dusk Court? Why isn't there a Dusk Court? And it's so funny because I didn't really put it together when they were talking about Dusk's truth in this. Like, I didn't even think about the Dusk Court and the fact that there wasn't a Dusk Court and a Court of Thorns and Roses. Like, it didn't even cross my mind. But like, after thinking about it, I'm like, oh my gosh, it totally makes sense. Like, being on an island with, you know, that's in constant twilight, like, it just makes sense. And the other thing that I love is that Rune looks like Rhys, which I think that is a really interesting thing as well. Like, is Rune and Rhys related in some way? Like, is there a lineage connection there? Like, Rhys's sister? Could Rhys's sister be Rune's mother? Because we don't know too much about Rune's mother, really. So, like, there's so many possible connections there that I think is so fascinating. So yeah, I just think it's gonna be cool. And I think that this will also open up like a little bit more information on Amryn, because I love Amryn. But like, I've always been curious about what she was. Is she gonna be similar to like the Thunderbirds? Because I'm pretty sure, what is she, a Firebird? I think is what they called Amryn. So if she's a Firebird and then there's Thunderbirds, like, is Amryn, like, is that like connected somehow? I don't know. I think that would be interesting. I also had this theory that maybe Amryn was like an Asteri or something, because, you know, Amryn is like so powerful, and I was like, oh my gosh, is Amryn an Asteri? But then I was like, no, probably not, because the Asteri really aren't that powerful unless they have like the First Lights feeding them all the time. So then I don't think that she would be an Asteri. But like, all these, you know, theories started just like flooding into my brain, and like, it's been so fun, like, exploring all the different theories and stuff like that. But back to the actual book itself. Overall, I did enjoy this. I almost gave this book 4 stars, and I kind of feel like I should give it 4 stars. Like, there's this huge pull for me to give it 4 stars, but then I gave it 5 stars. And the reason I gave it 5 stars is, like, you know how you read a book and in hindsight, like, after you finish the entire book, you can look back at the book in hindsight and like appreciate it so much, because like, you can just kind of tie everything together, and you like love the characters because you've been with them for so long. And it's like, in hindsight, it's a 5-star book. But like, while I was reading it, I was struggling sometimes with like the pacing. And this is something that I always feel with Sarah J Maas's books. Every single one of them, like A Court of Mist and Fury is one of my favorite books of all time. But even that book, to me, had pacing issues. And it's just something about the way Sarah J Maas writes, especially this series, where there are issues with her pacing. Like, a ton of stuff happens at the end, but like the whole middle is just like, I don't know. She is a character-driven author. I mean, don't get me wrong, she has a lot of plot, but she does really focus on the characters a lot because she wants that character growth, which I can appreciate. I've said this in many books before, where I'm not a character-driven reader, but I can appreciate character-driven books, because even though I do tend to get a little bit more bored at times, like developing the characters and stuff, I always feel stronger for the characters in character-driven books. So in that sense, I can appreciate the character-driven books. It's just that sometimes I find character-driven books to be a little bit on the slower side. For some reason, that just doesn't hold my attention that well. But with that said, in hindsight, I feel like this is a 5-star, but while I was reading it, there were definitely times where I was like, oh, this is like a 4-star read, like, you know, it's kind of slow right now, like, I'm really freaking bored. One thing that I really noticed about this book too is it's very, like, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of side plots. There's a lot of new characters coming in. Like, there were times where I'm like, wait a second, like, who is this? Like, how are they connected? Like, there's definitely characters where I forget that, like, this person is this person's mom, or this person is, like, connected to this person, because there's so many characters and so many ties to remember that I forget. So that's definitely a problem for me when I'm reading books like this, where there's constantly new characters being introduced all the time, and they have ties and they have allies and stuff like that. Like, I start to, like, get overwhelmed, and then I start forgetting. But I also feel like, too, it added a lot to the story, because when you have a lot of characters, you can have a lot of twists, because there's so many characters to keep track of that, like, when there's a mystery, you're like, okay, who could this be? There's so many characters. Like, it could could be anyone. So I feel like in that regard it can be really good, because if there's not enough characters, it's always really easy to predict twists, because you're like, well, this is like the only person that it could be, you know what I mean? So I feel like in that regard it was really good, but it did get a little confusing and a little bit like info dumpy at times. Like there were times where I just wanted my brain to relax into reading this. Like I just kind of wanted to relax into it, but I felt like I had to constantly be like very like focused on like all the different things I was reading and bringing in. And I have so many, all of my orange tabs are like important information that like I knew would come into the story that I would need to remember. So I was just constantly just tabbing like orange tabs, like, okay, this is important, this is important. It's definitely not a book I feel like you can skim through. Like, you know how there's some books where you can just kind of relax into it? I kind of feel like A Court of Thorns and Roses, like that whole series is a little bit more relaxed. With this series, it just feels so much more politically heavy, where you have to be very, very focused like the entire time. So they're definitely like a different vibe. One thing though I found is there were definitely point of views that I wasn't as interested in, like Tharian and his little River Queen's daughter scenario. Like I just kind of felt like that whole plot line wasn't 100% needed. Like I know it really grew Tharian's character and we could understand him better, but it was a plot line that I just wasn't that invested in, and it kept getting brought up, you know, that he wasn't in love with the River Queen's daughter, and like for some reason I just didn't feel like that was that important, and I like didn't need to really know that much about it. And every time Tharian's point of view would come in, I was just kind of like, okay, like not that interested, but whatever. Another thing too, as you guys saw in the vlog, I wasn't so connected to Bryce and Hunt in this book as I was with the first book, and I didn't like their relationship arc. Now I know that's rare, especially for people that are big fans of romance and like Hunt and Bryce, but they're not my favorite book couple by any means. There's something about them as a couple that just doesn't connect with me, and I think it's because Bryce is just kind of she comes across as a little detached sometimes from Hunt. Like her mind is just focused on so many other things that she's not really connecting herself to Hunt and using Hunt as like a support system, whereas Hunt was like invested fully. And I kind of felt like their dynamic wasn't really matching on both sides, and I feel like that kind of took away from their relationship for me a little bit, because I feel like with people like Rhys and Feyre, like they were each other's support systems, and they, you know, relied on each other and leaned on each other when stuff would get hard. And I feel like that type of relationship is so much more like, I can just connect to that type of relationship more. And this one just felt a little like detached to me in a way. I didn't hate it, like I can still appreciate it, but it's definitely not my favorite relationship in a book. One character though that I'm obsessed with is Rune. He's my new comfort character. I love him so much. He is such a sweetheart. I love his thing with the Hind. Like I know it's like she's a bad guy or whatever, but I think it's going to be like one of those Rhys situations where she has a reason for doing everything that she did, and it's just going to kind of slowly start coming out more and more. And I love that relationship. Like when that relationship started to develop, I was just like, done. Like this is what I wanted throughout this whole book, was in a relationship that was new, that was different, that had like those really strong feelings and stuff like that, and I just loved it so much. And obviously Rune and the Hind are mates. Like there was a lot of hinting towards the whole mate thing, so I definitely think that they are mates. But what I think is going to be interesting too is there going to be any mates in the ACOTAR world that are connected to the Crescent City world? Because if you think about it, like they talk about how mates are really, really rare in ACOTAR. So they always say like mates are rare, you know, people can have mates, but it's not always a thing. Like you can't always have mates. But then in the Crescent City world, mates are even more rare. Like it's really, really, really rare to find a mate. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's rare because the worlds have been split. Like people in the ACOTAR world, their mates are in the Crescent City world, and the Crescent City world, their mates are in the ACOTAR world. And the reason mates are even rarer in the Crescent City world is because there's less of them, like less people went to the Crescent City world, and there's more people obviously in like the Prynthian world. So is that why mates are even more rare in the Crescent City world, and are they going to end up connecting at some point? Like what if Gwen isn't his mate? What if his mate is in like Crescent City? I'm really into Ethan's kind of side story and finding the like the alpha in his den or whatever. Obviously, like that's kind of an interesting story. I haven't fully connected myself to Ethan. Like I do like Ethan, but for some reason ever since I was introduced to Ethan, I've always pictured him as like this frat boy from like the early 2000s. Like when I was in college, there was just a certain type of frat boy with like the popped collars and like their hair that they never cut because they never go to the barber, so it's like grown out, and they put a baseball cap over their like winged hair because they never cut their hair. Like, I get this certain vibe from Ethan as like this frat boy type of guy, and I can't unsee it. And like I've talked about in past videos, like once I have a character in my head, it's really hard for me sometimes to detach myself from that character or like to change his character. And because in my head Ethan's like this like bro-y frat guy, it's like a struggle. But I do really, really like him. I think Ethan is one of those characters that has such good intentions, and he's such like a sweetheart with good intentions, and he just wants to do right, but sometimes he just doesn't know how to do it, or he feels insecure because he just got kicked out of his den, and he's just like trying to find his way in the world. Like, he's at this really unique place in this story of trying to find his way. And I almost feel like in a way Ethan is on his own journey right now. Like, he did kind of fall into like the Bryce circle, but in a way he's on his own journey outside of Bryce and her circle, which I do really like and I think is really interesting, which I think obviously is gonna like play a big role in the next book. But anyways, overall this book, like I said, was 5 stars. In hindsight, kind of during the reading process, I did consider giving it 4. I guess I could say this book is maybe a 4.5 star. That is it for this review, and I will see you guys in my next video. Please comment down below any of your guys' thoughts with this book, and like any theories that you guys have, if you guys liked the ending or if you didn't. Like I said, I know it's very controversial. Some people did not want to see that happen, but I was literally on the verge of tears. I was so happy. So yeah, that is it guys, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.